Hello and welcome to the Complete Agent podcast, where each week we aim to entertain and educate our community and help them sell better properties and command higher fees. I'm James Kendall, and as ever, I'm joined by my co-hosts David Warburton and Ian Storey. Lads, how's your week been?
Good morning, James and David. Week's been good, actually, after yesterday. I've battled to secure 2 listings yesterday. It was an absolute battle. One is on with another agent, has been on since last May. Since September. 2 viewings, hardly any contact. Went well on the Val last week, and then she called yesterday to say, "Oh, you're not going to want to hear this, Ian, but I've decided to reduce with my covenant. I'm going to reduce the price, and then if it's not sold after 2 months, we'll come to you in the spring." So I really had quite a heated debate with her on the phone about why she shouldn't do that. Managed to get her to pause the reduction with the current agent. Agreed a call with her and her husband at 7:30 this morning. Was contacting Gatesy about 6:30 this morning to get a load of data to send over to her as to why she definitely shouldn't reduce the price. She should change to us. And it's turned basically, if she's going to do that, she's going to give them notice, take it off Rightmove and give it to us. And then I had another battle conversation yesterday with a guy who was questioning our fee of 2%. Why is it worth it? And I did our usual spiel as to why we're definitely worth it and why he shouldn't pay Joe Bloggs estate agents 1%. And we got the approval on that last night as well. And another one where they hadn't signed the terms, even though they said they were going ahead, and they finally signed last night. So I've had a few battles on my hand. We have managed to generate some good listings and offers on three other properties that we're hopeful to get agreed sales on. So decent, and another load of vals booked. We target the team to book 10 vals a week, and 9. By yesterday, we'd already booked 9. So good.
Nice.
Yeah, really good. Good week for me as well. What I found is that I'm doing a lot of front-end stuff at the moment, if I'm honest. So I've been to lots of valuations and we've got people waiting to make decisions, but obviously the follow-up and nurture is pretty good here. So we're constantly in contact, and there's certainly going to be some good stuff to come. But I got 2 really good instructions this week, actually. So one, for our end of the market, we sort of operate, as you know, more like 500,000 up to maybe more so like 1 to 1.5 million. That's the bulk of the stock. You'll get the odd beauty at like 2 million, 2.5 million, that kind of thing. But the ones that I've been to this week, so one at 900,000, which is a really good one. He built the house himself, strangely, and he was saying to me, we want to try and do it again. He was in his mid-60s, but they're in this massive sort of 5-bed detached home, and they're hoping to downsize to a bungalow like a lot of people are. And they want to have one more go at building themselves, but there's not many building plots come up available in the area. Worst case, they might look at a massive renovation, but there's just not a lot coming up. And then I've been to one earlier in the week that's about 1,050,000, but it's got a half-acre plot, and it could easily be split. And they've tried selling in the past with 3 agents, and because the price of the property is probably perceived to be quite high, perceived to be quite high for that style of home, maybe. A lot of emphasis needs to be put on the opportunity, if that makes sense, because it's got this land at the side, and for the right buyer, and that's what it's often about, isn't it? It's not always about just appealing to the masses. You've got to sometimes target the right type of buyer for it, and your marketing really needs to reflect that. But for the right buyer, I feel that she could get somebody who would potentially build that out in the future and not just have a massive garden, which she liked. And astonishingly, the 3 agents that she's used over the last 12, 18 months haven't highlighted this. And none of the marketing, get this, on 1,050,000 home with all this land has drone footage. None of it. Doesn't show plot size. There's no videos. So I just said to her, this is how I think we should market your home. And she was really buying into that. And lo and behold, I go and see this guy. And I said, you'll not believe this, but I've got a great house that I've been to this week, and I think it's perfect for you. So I went back to her and I said, would you split the title? He can't afford to buy your house, but your house is much more saleable at 850, if I'm honest, and we can split the land off for 200, 250,000, because I know it'll sell for that all day long. And she said, look, as long as I get 1,050,000, I'm really happy. And I said, I'll get you 1,050,000. So I'm taking this guy up on Tuesday. In fact, I'm taking another developer as well. She's already signed and given me the instruction. But sometimes it's just thinking outside the box and really drilling into that detail. So yeah, 2 instructions this week for me at good levels. Like 39 grand in fees, which is great. We've done a couple of really nice exchanges this week as well. That puts another 20 grand into the pipeline, which is nice. So yeah, lads, it's been a very good week. Did a take on the other day. I had to split this take on into 3 days because the weather has been so bad in Bolton. Don't know about you guys, but
is that the one where my videographer, who I recommended to you, couldn't do it for me on the sunny day because he was doing it for you?
Well, let's have it right. Let's have it right. Shall I tell them the story, Ian? So basically, the videographer was due to come on the Monday. The weather was terrible. So I contacted him to say, the weather's terrible, shall we change? So I changed it to the Tuesday. He was like, yep, great, no problem. Ian rings me saying, "Hey, mate, I love you so much. Is there any chance you can cancel your take on so I can do mine?" So obviously I said no. And we went ahead. But we're literally having to go back today, actually. It's a nice day today to get all the externals and the twilights. And again, just for anyone listening, I think sometimes, despite that being an absolute ball ache this week, to be honest with you, we've had photographer go Monday, videographer Tuesday, and then we're going again today. The client loves it, absolutely loves it. The fact that we're putting all that effort into it, yes, it's going to delay the listing a little bit, but it's going to look spot on rather than dull, rain, etc. So yeah, there you go. In summary, good week. Long way of saying it.
Cool. It's almost, you know what's really strange, as you were saying that, and obviously we talked beforehand, but we didn't really talk about weeks beforehand. And your week is scarily similar to mine. So the instruction that you may have seen the photos that I put in the Facebook group. The classic of the builder built it for himself, but the house that I'm just about to launch, the video should be edited by tomorrow, and it's the first video I've ever done with the seller, because the attention to detail needed in the marketing was just not there with the previous agent. It was, I think I said before, it was marketed with a previous agent, and it was just marketed as a 4-bedroom modern detached house, when it's actually a passive house, fully certified, and it's a multi-comfort house as well. And 95% of the world, well, maybe more than that, aren't going to know what that is. So you really need to drill that in to say, well, look, it's a 2,800 square foot house. Why is it now £300,000 more than a 2,800 square foot house that sold 2 doors up? What am I getting for my money? And there's so much. And then, interestingly, I went to a Val off the back of one of the letters in the new area that we're sending out to. Lady that's got a 4-bedroom detached house, roughly 1,600 square feet, but it's on 2/3 of an acre. She's got lapsed planning for a 180 square meter house. Now she got me out and said, "Look, I don't normally respond to unsolicited mail." And I was like, well, okay, I'll take as a, but she goes, the level of detail in your letter and your message, she goes, was really impressive. I had lots of letters, people saying that, sell my house, we've got buyers, but I was very impressed with your educational piece and your information on the market. And I was like, well, that's what we do. Anyway. But then obviously when it came to the valuation, she'd had valuations before. And the experience that she'd had with other agents was that, it was very much, right, let's get it on, babe. Let's just get the photos down and we'll get it on the market and, it's sorted. And she was like, my kind of approach was, and
that
the guys...
That is what you sound like.
Yeah,
to me.
So I was like, I was going to do your voice then, Ian, but I can't do that on the podcast too much. But I said to her, look, what I need to do, I did what you guys do. Normally, I give a price in the living room, but it was the kitchen. But anyway, the point is, I normally give a price in the house, but there was a lot to work out because there was nothing. This house hasn't been for sale for 40 years. All I could find online before I went was the planning, because obviously we spoke to her before we went out there. She said there's a building plot there. They've had planning before, yada, yada, yada. So I downloaded the plans, went over the plans, got to the house because, there's nothing online about the house. Went to the house. I know by eye it's about 1,600 square feet. Looked at what's sold down the road previously and how much it is. Got a rough pounds per square foot for the area for what's selling. There's quite it's quite erratic, actually, the pounds per square foot in the area, what things are selling for. But I said, look, if you'll allow me to, I'd like to go away and I'll give you a call in 48 hours and I'll let you know what I think you can achieve and what's there. Bottom line is, I spoke to a couple of developers I know about the plot. I did advise her when I saw her originally. The house is 180 square meters. The design that was done when they got the planning originally, like 15 years ago, is quite a word I'm going to use is antiquated plan. It's not suited for modern living. It's a plan of a traditional kind of 90s house that has just been copied and pasted and gone into planning. Whereas I think, this plot is special. It's currently 2/3 of an acre with that house on, split into two. It's 1/3 of an acre plot, overlooking fields in one of the best villages in Buckinghamshire. It needs to be a bit more special, and there's some fantastic homes, like design-led homes that have been sold within a quarter of a mile. So I said, in order to maximise your investment, it may be better. I mean, you've got different options. I'm not going to go through a whole podcast here because it might be a whole podcast in itself. But, look at maybe tweaking the design, getting some more square footage to maximise the value of the land. Because at the moment, you're looking at about probably 250, 300. I said with some small tweaks and some extra square footage, you could probably maximize that to 354. Anyway, bottom line is, she came back and said, you're the first person that's actually broken it all down into granular detail. She goes, it's very much like your letter. She goes, all the options you explained. She goes, I can't remember the word she used, but she basically, along the lines of, you're very detail orientated. She goes, I'm not ready to do it this second. But she said, what I will say is, when I do this, whether it's in a month's time or in a year's time, I want you to represent me. And I thought, brilliant. I've done my homework. And that's the way with the letters sometimes. You send these letters out, you meet people, and the first thing they always say to you on the phone is, I'm not selling now. Because I think that in itself is a test. But yeah, anyway, bottom line is this week, been pretty good. No sales this week, no new sales. Interesting at some of the lower end, around the 400-ish, a little bit battling on fees a little bit there. And sometimes, people just can't see the value. You give them the stats, you give them the everything that you do, and they're just never going to use you. They've got somebody in mind that's quoted them with 0.75%. They don't see the value in what you're saying. And, you just, again, you could take a horse to water, shove its face in the pond, but, if it doesn't want to drink, then it ain't going to drink.
I should just add something that I made my week sound really rosy when I just realised that actually we've probably got two that are going to fall through. So we've got a linked transaction where we sold and they're buying offers, and they're both 20 grand fees.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So that the first one, the lower one in the chain, is a grade 2 listed barn, and surveys come back and torn it apart. Pointing's all been done in standard mortar rather than the lime mix that it's meant to be done in.
Yeah,
with 45 grand to repoint it, plus a load of other stuff. So they're trying to renege by 50 grand.
And what they said, is there a compromise or not?
Well, we sold it for 920, which is, I actually said to go on offer for 850. So it went on at 900. We got 920, but no one else wanted it. They were the only people for months who offered. So it's an amazing price at 920. Yeah. It's probably realistically worth 880. Really. Yeah. 875, 890, something like that. So really a 50 grand reduction is he's bringing it down to what it should be worth. But obviously for the seller, they're not viewing it like that. So we're trying to save it, and obviously,
the thing is it going to happen again? That's the other thing.
Well, exactly. I don't know if they're going to get anywhere near that level again, because the garden isn't attached to it either. It's like detached from it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful house, but so anyway, that's looking like it might fall. We're going to try and hopefully save it, but that would be a big chunk off the pipeline if that happens. So it's not all roses, is it?
No, but as you wrote on the board last week at our mastermind session, Ian, what did you write on the board?
I wrote that everything will be fine.
It will. Because I remember that you had similar last year. The start of last year, you were, you've got a very, very good business. You run a very consistent pipeline. But at the start of last year for you, I remember you were on the phone to me and JK saying, oh my God, what is going on here? Just faller after faller. And I think obviously there's a lot to be said for sticking to the plan. You've got to develop a thick layer of skin in our business anyway. But you massively recovered and had another tremendous year, didn't you? So
that last Q1 last year, we lost 180 grand out of the pipeline in about 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So I was not in a good place. But what it's taught me going into this year is that everything will be okay in the end as long as you follow the process.
That's it.
Send your letters out, make sure you're producing those valuations. It will all be okay in the end, won't it?
Yeah.
So go on then, Dave. What's this week's topic?
So we have been chatting to quite a lot of people in our group and our new members. We're getting some consistent questions, aren't we? And they all sort of feed into each other, but are almost about different topics. So people are having different challenges, whether it be fee related, whether it be conversion rates, whether it be doing video or professional photography, all that sort of stuff. We've had very, very different conversations, but ultimately they all linking together and basically form your whole proposition, don't they? So what we've chatted about this week, for those that are listening, is I think we're going to do like a mini series from here on in, and we're going to go right back to the start and talk about basically setting your agency up for success, I suppose, initially having a look at how you look, all the way through to what that looks like when you are dealing with your exchanges and stuff like that. So basically the whole process, however many steps that will take. And I think this podcast today, we're going to look at basically how you look and what you want to attract. So going right back to the basics. So it doesn't matter if you're a very well-established brand. I think that everybody can do this, and you should do this. You should probably do this quite regularly, actually, at least once a year, I would say. Obviously, the start of the year is a great time to be doing it. Just audit yourself and have a look at your pipeline. Have a look at your. I always think it's a good thing to look at your website and look at how your property listings look on your website, and maybe even get people to look at your website and tell you what they honestly think. Just get people that you trust. I've asked you to on many occasions before, and you certainly don't hold back if you think that something needs to be changed. And I like that, and I think it's important that everybody does it themselves as well. So I think we'll get into that. How do you want to start here, Ian? Do you want to sort of talk about a little bit about your backstory, because we've all come from low fixed fee, high volume models. So, for example, when I started, I was charging £999 plus VAT to sell a home, and
big cash.
Yeah, and it was awful.
No sale, no fee as well.
Yeah, no sale, no fee, no contract tie-in period. Taking all my own photos, albeit they were all right, to be fair. That was a frightening thing. We were better than most of the competition. But taking all our own photos, doing our own floor plans, eventually, once we got into video, doing all our own videos. And I'll come to you in a second, but for me, it just led to, I'll be honest, it led to monumental losses in that first couple of years. It was a terrible experience. When we did get busy, it was unsustainable because you can't service the clients like you want to. So, yeah, the low fee, high volume model just did not work. And we've all come from that, which is great, and that's why we found each other. We found each other, didn't we? But we've all obviously successfully moved to a lot higher fees, lower volume, and high quality fees and high quality stock. Ian, you started doing that, I think, around 2019, didn't you? JK, you might have done it around then as well, but we'll come to you in a sec. But so Ian, yeah, so you started obviously low fixed fee model, and then in 2019, I think it was, you had a complete rebrand. So let's talk about you first.
Okay, thank you. So I think that before I start, it's important to note that the three of us have all got to where we are now via different routes. So I started a completely new brand. JK turned his brand around, and Dave added on a second brand. So I think the magic source, as it were, of the three of us is that we've all done it, but all done it in a different way. So if you're looking to try and do it, we can really help because we've all gone about it in one of the three ways that it can be done, either starting afresh, changing your existing brand around, or adding on another brand. There aren't any other ways of doing it. Mm-hmm. So I became self-employed in 2006. I was 25, started a high street agency with a colleague from where I'd worked, and it was a traditional high street agency, charged 1%, had some decent sales. That business didn't work out. The partnership didn't work out, and that nearly went under. Brought in a new business partner, carried on doing traditional estate agency. Thankfully, we were at the time we were building up a really big lettings portfolio. I don't want to do lettings again now, but at the time we did. There was less legislation there. It was easier. You could charge tenant fees. You all remember those. So we had that, which really supported us. That business, the sales business, then it nearly went under again, but because we had lettings, we were fine. I then left that business and started a company where we were doing low fixed fees. This was around 2014, 15, because I thought that was the way it was all going. So we started a company called iMove, which when I look back now, it looks so cheap, but it was a learning curve. It was a big learning curve. And we charged, 999 + VAT. And I think it was 1295 + VAT if it was, over 200 or something like that. We used to get very, very excited.
I was going to say, do you remember the euphoria when you actually got like a...
Yeah, £2.5 fee.
Yeah, we upped our fee from 999 to 1500.
Absolutely over the moon. Yeah. So we did that. Not surprisingly, that business also nearly failed, but again, we had a lettings business, separate limited company. So that brought in a good cash flow each month. That kept us going. And then when we decided to set up Stories, we still had that lettings company. So I was able to start Stories with the income from the lettings company at iMove. So that enabled me to not have to take any money out of Stories for the first year, which was great because of that, I could be selective with Stories. So we ended up selling our lettings company, which is still going now, very successful, to a friend of mine. That's still running as a letting agency. We disposed of that once Stories was getting off the ground. But with Stories, I was able to be completely selective from the start. So I turned away loads of properties. I went to some, got a bit of hassle from some people because I'd go to the Val and realise it wasn't right and have to make a reason up that I didn't want to sell it. But I did it. I held firm with that. And it got us to the stage where we are now, where people don't really call us. If they've not got a nice house, they don't call us. They call someone else. We don't really have to turn people away now. We just get a lot of nice houses coming to us. And it was because we were selective from the start. And we designed the brand to attract the mid to higher end, which for us is similar to you, Dev, actually, like 500 to 1.5 is our range. Lovely range to be in. And that's how we started it. And we've held firm with that ever since. And it's got us to where we are now. So nice. For me, it was starting a new brand, being selective, creating branding that looked mid to higher end, but not too fancy. Decided to use my surname because then I could do loads of promotion around it on Facebook, personal promotion, which is that's worked extremely well. Obviously, same name as my company is great for marketing purposes. So that's how I did it, and I know that's different to both of you. So it'll be interesting to see.
It kind of is. It is, but the principle is absolutely the same. So, JK, you obviously were the same. You've always had the same brand name, haven't you?
Yeah, with varying different branding, if that makes sense.
You've obviously shared some of your old branding with us. And, to say that you're an expert on clip art would be an understatement.
I mean, to be fair, that would be putting it not kindly, to be fair.
So go on, tell us a little bit about your journey then, because it is important, this, because I think if anybody listening is in this boat and just struggling to generate the higher end listings, I'll come to my rebrand shortly, but or rather new brand, then I think it's going to be really important. Ian, yes, what you...
Can I just say something, which I think that James has had the biggest challenge of all of us.
Yeah, possibly.
Because starting it... maybe you disagree with that, Dave.
No, I do. I agree. But I just wonder if it's for the same reason why. Go on.
So, obviously, I started a brand new company, so you can do what you want, can't you? If you start a new company, you can literally do what you want. You can call it anything. You can have whatever branding you want. It's totally new. You did the same thing with a second brand. So you added on a luxury brand, whereas James has turned an existing company that was low end. Okay, you changed the branding, but it was the same name. Turned it around to listing nice stuff at higher fees.
Yeah, phenomenal. That's what I was thinking.
And if it wasn't, you'll go with that anyway because it sounded good.
Anyway.
So for me, I mean, my really quick backstory, it was that obviously I was in a high street environment got screwed over and set the business up out of spite really more than anything else. Awful business advice, to be honest. Don't ever do that. I had no business plan. All I was really angry, and I knew how to be an estate agent. So I just thought, well, look, as you guys said, I mean, this is what, 2011. So I thought to myself, look, there's a local agent near me doing 999 plus VAT, seemed to be getting a few on, doing all right. I thought, well, I could do that and I could probably do it better. So got a credit card, got a Rightmove subscription, had a car that only one door opened because I had a company car at the time. I just had to park it around the corner. Came up with some really awful branding, as you've alluded to, and I'm happy to share them in the group. To be fair, more for a laugh, but also equally to see where I've come from. And what I did from the beginning was all I knew from working in my corporate days was 2020s and leaflets. So I got a load of leaflets printed, 10,000 leaflets printed. And all I did at the start was go walk in the streets every single day, posting leaflets for everyone's doors, like scattergun approach. I knocked lots of doors, but there were just houses that weren't on the market. I was kind of almost spraying and praying. Lost about 25 grand, 30 grand in the first 6 months. Almost went under. Then quickly flipped from 999. I realised 999 wasn't working. Someone said to me, it was quite rude, but equally very constructive feedback. They said, your branding looks awful. Looks like it's from the 80s. And to be honest, it was. So, but then the turning point for me was, I was like, look, this is either going to fail spectacularly, or I need to up my game. And I then offered potential, because I started to get some traction, offered people 999 or 1%, no sale, no fee. And what I found was the 999 was a draw to get through the door. And then I would upsell 1% and say, look, do you really want to be doing your own viewings? And then kind of built from there, really. But we were up until probably from a 2011, so I was a one-man band until 2014. And then from 2014 to 2016, I was a two-man band, had a flirted with lettings as well, which again failed spectacularly because I hated it. And then we went from 2 people to 3 people to 3 people to 4 people to 4 people to 5 people. Again, we had 1 year where houses per person in the office, we massively outperformed everyone in the local market. But we were selling, terraces at 160 grand for 1%. Our average fee was anywhere between 1,600 quid and 1,800 quid. And it, as you guys know, it was absolutely exhausting. You're doing so much work for 1,600 quid. And then it could all fall through at the end. And anyway, 2018 rolls round, and that's when I met Storey first at one of Perry Power's boot camps, of all places, and just decided then that I wanted a bit more for the business. I wasn't happy with low fixed fee and high volume, and that's when I I discovered Facebook. I've been on Facebook for years. We all have. We've all gone back and seen Time Hop and seen them music statuses and awful things we wrote 15 years ago, but I kind of found the Facebook communities, which was a real eye-opener for me, and connecting with different agents all the way around the country, looking at agents in London, like America. Again, I credit Perry with a lot of the love that I got back for agency, just because of, the way that he kind of ignited the fire back in me and was talking about things like, higher fees, 2%, onward negotiation. And I really got the thirst for learning. And then really I just kind of consistently leveled up. I think it was probably, they say you're kind of the sum of the 5 people you hang around. But I think if you're hanging around on Facebook groups with top end agents, I've always, and I said this to you guys before, especially you, Ian, I've always silently competed with the likes of you or other agents around the country, trying to be the best agent in the country. And what that's done over time is made me learn more and level up my offering constantly. And I was speaking to you the other day, Dave, about, where we're at the moment is we do we don't fit the mold in terms of, everyone says you can't stretch your brand, but we're selling places at 300 and my highest instruction's 3.5 million. So there is that, and there is still conversations ongoing. You know, do I go down your route, Dave? Do I do the brand split? You know, there's so much up in the air, but that's a really quick story of how I've gone from 999 no sale no fee to almost going out of business to now effectively. I mean, my personal average fee is about 17 grand, but if you take it across the board in the business, it's about we're about 9-10 grand roughly.
Cool. Well, I think obviously if anyone's listening and they want to reach out and ask any of us about what we've done, if they're in a similar boat, whether you're thinking of just starting out on your own, I think the likes of Ian and James would be amazing to talk to because they've just done it. If anybody's got like a lower to mid-range brand that they're struggling with or are bored with and they just want to try something else, I'm more than happy to talk to people about how we added a brand, and our other brand is totally different to the other. And for me, it's been an absolute game changer. So obviously we've had the low to mid-range brand that we started with from day one. And you said something there that I picked up on, JK, about you had no strategy. You had a scattergun approach to your leaflet dropping. We were exactly the same. And we got to like 2 or 3 years after pounding the streets, dropping leaflets and doing instant valuation tools on Facebook when they first came out. They were fantastic. Obviously, loads and loads of leads. When you didn't get the Mickey Mouse at Disney.com sort of lead and stuff like that. But when you're speaking to everybody, and I got to a point like seeing these great houses go on the market and thinking, we're just not getting invited out to these houses. Why are we not getting invited out? We're being so successful selling. And then when you do an actual audit of your website and your business, I was thinking, well, of course we're not getting invited out. The quickest way to get a leaflet through a door in volume is just put them through terraced houses. So we were getting invited out to a lot of terraced houses, and then you might get a 3-bed semi on the back of that or something like that. And we just became known for that. And I think it's really important. It's a really important point to make because you will continue to attract what you do. And if you're going to change your brand completely, like add a brand to your mid-range or start again, or if you're going to get out of corporate or employed role and go into self-employed role, you seriously need to have a think about how you want to look. Sorry, what you want to attract and how you need to look to attract those properties. And I think we're going to go through certain things here now about what we do as an absolute minimum to do that. And just on the extra brand for me, it has been an absolute game changer for anybody thinking about it, because what it also does is feeds through to our other brands. So what I'm able to do now is pitch our top end brand pretty much on every valuation, whether it be a 300, 400, 500,000 pound house or 1.5 million. Doesn't necessarily mean that client is going to get to use the top end brand. But then when you tell them you've got like a watered down version of the higher end brand and we can stick you on that one, it just leads to more instructions for that one and automatically grows that brand to something different, because that's something that I really wanted to do. I wanted my mid-range brand to become uniform, so I was only getting invited out to sort of executive style homes or good quality stock at the lower end. For me, that's like 250 up to 500,000. But exclusively, I wanted my Burton James brand to only really attract unique and prestige homes, and that's what it's done. And what I'm also finding, it is much easier to charge higher fees on higher value homes, which you'd think it was probably the other way around, wouldn't you? You would think that because, and I think we touched on it on one of the podcasts, but you get a lot of people going out to £1 million homes and saying, oh, well, because your house is £1 million, I can charge you 0.75%. But actually, if your proposition looks a certain way, and that's what we're going to go through, and you're doing the same things consistently and you consistently stand out, and you're sending authoritative content like we've talked about, you can command high fees. So starting at 2% for a start, it's not going to be achievable if you're blending in with everybody else, doing your own photographs, doing your own.
It's got to be worth it.
Absolutely. So you've got to differentiate yourself from the competition. And I know that we've all done that since either rebranding or starting again. Ian.
Thanks, David. I just wanted to say something before we start, which is that there's different ways of going about this, as the three of us have demonstrated. But I really do strongly now believe that you can have brand stretch.
Yes.
So what we, and we've talked about it ourselves, haven't we, between us, that what I think Stories stands for is quality. So I don't want to sell ex-council houses that are scruffy at the bottom end of the market. If you do, when you want to churn them over, then you need a separate brand. But apart from that, I think you can have brand stretch. So we sell a 300 grand 3-bed new build that's nicely modernised, and we sell a detached farm at 1.75, and we sell everything in between at an average fee of 1.98%. So we sell across the entire pricing range, but it comes back to quality. So you've got to the home has got to be quality, and every home has got to have the same marketing on it. And the other thing I just wanted to say was that if you are going to go about it and try and emulate what we've emulated, you need to start high and then start to attract the mid, not the other way around.
Great.
So we started, and I was only going high. I was trying to get some £1 million house. I got my first 1.25 listing over in North Wales, drove 45 minutes to do a viewing to prove I could sell it. That gave us pedigree, and then back over in Cheshire. So start high and then start to take on some that are maybe 400-500. And I think that's the best way to go about it, rather than trying to start low and go high.
Yeah. You need social proof, don't you?
Yeah.
So we've just talked at the same time again now. But I was going to say, you need social proof. Like, you've got to have, now having a list of, like, brochures, for example, I've been able to go, right, bosh, like laying them all on the table in front of a potential client and saying, I sold this and I broke this record. I sold this, was the most expensive house in that town. This is sold here. You've got pedigree, like you say. Sorry, Dave.
It's okay. I think I do agree with that, Ian, with the brand stretch, because I think when we got together a couple of years ago, when we first met, we were talking about brand stretch. You potentially rebranding part of your company, weren't we? Do you remember?
Yeah, can't believe that now.
And I said, "Oh, Ian, looking in, your brand is brilliant. It's great. For me, there was no reason for you to add another layer to your brand. It just looked great because of what we were about to talk about here. You were doing the same things every single time. For me, whilst I agree you can do brand stretch, if you're called iMove or We Locate or something like that,
or James Kendall."
No, maybe. As the face of the business. I do feel that you probably need to consider it, either a complete rebrand or adding the additional brand. And it obviously depends. A lot of it just depends how you look. And that was my opinion, my view, because I lived and breathed it every day. And also I had this mindset where I'd set that business up specifically for lower end, mid-range, low fixed fees. And in my head, I feel that's just how it looks, like as a brand. And I couldn't get away from that. And I wanted to completely separate what we were doing. So I introduced a completely separate brand. The interesting thing, guys, if you're listening and you're considering doing this sort of thing, when you're adding a layer to your existing business, you've got things like Brand Plus with Rightmove. So it used to be free, that if you were just adding a prestige brand or something to your existing brand, they didn't used to charge you for it. I think over the last 12 months they've brought it in. You'd have to check with your business development manager what sort of costs are, but it's not a huge amount to add another brand onto your existing if you use the Brand Plus. Zoopla is the same if you use that as well. And because obviously you've got your existing brand, whatever you put through your new one, the majority of it is profit. So, and it is absolutely transformed what we do. Like when I look at the board now, the whiteboards that we have up around the office, we've got it split. One side is the mid-range brand, one side is the higher end brand. And I start thinking to myself, especially on the bad months, we all have them. I look at the bad months and I go, do you know what? It's not actually that bad, because I've now got two brands. And if one has a bad month, the other one gets propped up. If both have a great month, well, utopia. So it's a really nice place to be. But I think if we just move on now, lads, to how it needs to look and how you need to do it, you have to do it in a certain way, and you have to find consistency in what you are offering your client. And we have spoken to quite a few of our members now and other people that are involved in the group, and we're trying to get this point across consistently, aren't we? That you can't compromise. You can't go, for example, to a 350,000, £400,000 house and not do a video
Mm.
and not do a brochure and maybe
Not in
not
2024.
or not do your twilight photography. You've got to find consistency across your brand. There will be some, for me, there's got to be some short-term pain. Ian alluded to it before, so you've got to turn some clients away. So if that house doesn't quite fit your brand, you're going to have to walk away from that. So you're going to have to learn how to do that. You're also going to have to walk away if you're not getting your fees sometimes. Of course, there's always going to be that one house on the best street in the best area that you want. And you might do a fee deal at first to get you over the line. You might need them to get to a point where you've got 5 or 6, like James said, social proof. But as long as they all look the same, you've got to take that hit. So if you're not making a lot of money on the first 2 or 3, that's okay, as long as you have got the end goal in mind, which is to get to your 1.5%-2% fees consistently by looking the same on every single listing, whether it's a £350,000 executive style detached home or a £1.5 million barn conversion. What are you going to add to that, Ian?
I was going to add something. I was going to say exactly what you've just said. So there'd be absolutely no value add whatsoever. I was going to say that at the start of the company, I paid for the videos out of my own pocket.
Yep.
So I found the money because I thought this is so good. People like them so much and no one else is doing them. And that's still the case in most areas, isn't it? They're not doing them properly. They're doing them every now and then. You get the odd one.
Is at the moment, by the way, because it's winter, you'll see more twilight shots.
Yeah.
A few different companies. There's obviously the fake ones, which I think do look terrible.
Dreadful.
They really look bad.
Awful.
So you can't beat a proper twilight shot. But you'll see more agents doing them at the moment. But I remember last summer being in somebody's garden at 10:30 p.m, drinking Prosecco with the owners, waiting for our photographer to finish.
Yep.
And it's that kind of commitment that has taken us to the next level.
Yeah. And by the way, that's obviously good because you're going to get the twilight for the property. But what's way more powerful is that you stood there with the client at 10 p.m, do a live video, say you're there, but then also the client's going to tell all their friends, you can't believe it, he was here at 10 p.m, the estate agent.
Absolutely. And then when the brochure arrives and it just looks spectacular, you think it was well worth it. And again, you've got to set it up. We always say, I'm sure you're the same, we're always saying to the vendors, it's a long day, guys. Our home stylist is going to turn up 1 to 2 hours before the photographers. The photographers are going to probably be there for a couple of hours, then they're going to come back and do twilight at 10:30 at night. The videographers are going to take a while. We've got to do my presenter bit. It's probably going to be most of the day. But that's why we're 2%. And all our competitors are charging 0.75 and 1% and producing inferior marketing. And just on that point, if you look the same as all your competitors, how can you charge differently?
Nah. Just competing on price, aren't you? I think that's the problem with the market. That's why there is always the race to the bottom, because everyone is just exactly the same. Most people now, iPhones and digital cameras are at a level where, your average Joe Bloggs agent can take their own photos now, and they don't look. I mean, well, some are still bucking the trend locally and taking photos on a potato, but the majority of them are half decent in the grand scheme of things. Like, they're not awful. So looking from the outside, a client might go, well, the marketing's half decent. And it's only really once they engage the services that they realise that the actual communication and the actual service behind the scenes is awful. The other thing I was going to say is, just about video, just do it. Like Ian says, we always find reasons to say, oh, we haven't got the money, or we can't commit to this now, or, cash flow's tight. Find it. If you want to, what's the Einstein insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Yeah.
So if you just keep doing what you're doing, you're not going to move further forward. You need to invest in yourself. How many times have you taken out a loan for another car or something else that you wanted in life? Invest in your business and invest in yourself. This isn't financial advice, so please don't sue my ass. But, if you take out a business loan at a low interest rate, or, there's money there. The bottom line is you need to take yourself out of your comfort zone, because that's the only way you're going to grow. If you really want to do something different and change your business for the better, then you need to invest, and whether that's your own time or money, probably both.
Right.
You need to invest both of those massively if you want to see an uptick in your business.
Can I also say that you're never going to create a successful business without taking risk.
Yeah.
So there is not a very successful business in history that hasn't at some point had an entrepreneur at the start of it taking risk. You just have to do that. You can't go into it gently because you won't disrupt the market enough. And also, Dave, before you start talking, although I love the sound of your voice, I just wanted to mention that we have a competitor near us. I don't like the word competitor because they're not. We have an estate agent near us that charges 0.75% plus VAT on everything. And their photos are actually quite good, annoyingly. However, it all comes down to the detail. There's another agent near us who gets quite a good market share. They charge similar 0.75, 1%. Their photos are also decent, but the detail is not there. So when I look, and the more and more they're putting on now because they charge cheap fees, I see piles of stuff in rooms that could be moved and they haven't got patio doors open. And do you know what I mean? The photos might be good, but what are you as the agent? Are you making sure that room is styled properly before the photographer goes in? Because most agents just send in the photographer by themselves, and the photographer will only photograph what they see in that room. They're not stylists. They won't check it's all set up properly. They'll just photograph it. So you've got to have a member of your team there on the day to make sure that the room is styled properly before it's photographed, because that will really show through on the photographs, and it really impresses the client that you're all there on the same day.
Yeah, I think what I was going to say just then, I think with the cash flow thing, I totally agree with you. We've all been there and we've had to find a way of doing it. But if you are, again, talking from experience, if you are an existing brand where you think, well, we are consistently attracting 2-bed terraced houses and 3-bed semi-detached homes, and you think it might be a struggle to make that leap, adding the additional brand is a great way of managing cash flow in a way, because you're not having to put a full Rightmove subscription in place. You're not having to put a full Zoopla subscription in place. You are literally adding it to your other one. It's just a different name. Of course, you've got the website setups, but there's some really good web developers out there. I like Alex at EA Apps, so quick plug for him. He's a great guy if you wanted something quite easy to set up, and he's really good at doing that. So there's stuff that you can do. And I think you can manage cash flow better because you can still keep your mid-range brand, if that makes sense. So you've still got that coming in. It just means you need to maybe siphon a bit across to get the other going. And we know it all takes probably 6 to 12 months to properly get going, doesn't it? To start having that steady, consistent flow of exchanges coming through every month. But it can be done if you do it that way as well.
I agree, David. I think I was in quite a luxury position of being able to do it and not make any money from it because I still had the lettings book that was giving me an income. I mean, Alex, we were running it together, so she didn't have a separate job where there was another income coming in. It was just that for the whole family with 2 kids, mortgage, 2 cars, So it was definitely a risk, and we moved areas completely. So it was a big risk for me, but I suppose I did have a bit of a comfort blanket in the lettings book that provided us with an income. So for someone like you, adding on a brand is maybe a better option. It depends on your position, doesn't it?
Yeah, everybody's going to be different, and like you said, we've all got a slightly different route. So I think if anybody did want to reach out and discuss how we've done it, then we can probably offer 3 different ways. Is my point, and but it's not beyond the realms of possibility. I know it can sometimes seem really difficult. The amount of people we've spoken to over the last few weeks, where it's cash flow. But
there is a solution to that, though. That all I was going to jump in and say is that there is a solution to that. But again, it's pain. You could, if you target those homes, and you get an opportunity to speak to somebody, and you haven't got the money to do it. The other option is you could say to the client, look, why don't we do something different? I really want to use your house as a case study, as an opportunity. You pay for the marketing and I'll sell your house for free. Get those under your belt. It's not the kind of things you want to do when you're in the market and you've proven your worth. But if you've got nothing, if you've got no social proof and no stories and nothing to kind of, and I mean like actual stories, not stories of the estate agents. If you've got one of those, happy days. But that then gives you social proof. So if yes, you're not going to make any money out of it, but equally you're not going to lose any money. So if you haven't got the confidence in yourself to go and get money and borrow it and take that risk, then put the risk on the client. But then, as I said before, if you haven't got money, then you've got to prepare to sacrifice time, and the time is going to be selling that house for free, proving to yourself you can do it, and then you can just market the hell out of that and then double down on it on the next instruction.
Yeah, that is an excellent point, JK, that I hadn't thought of. That is an excellent point.
That's why I'm here.
Golden nuggets like that. So yeah, I think obviously going back right to the start there, it's about finding who you are. You know, what is it you want to attract, and then setting yourself up for success. Just do the same things every single time. There will be some short-term pain. You'll have to turn things away. You'll have to do some deals every now and again, I think, right at the start. But don't let that impact your future, because it will. The minute you start doing deals here and there, or dropping a video, or not bothering with a Twilight, or not doing a brochure, then consistency creeps in, doesn't it? And you'll start doing it on every single one. And before you know it, you're no different than everybody else. You've got to be consistent.
Yeah, and I also think that you should try and be the first to do it in your area. So we were the first to be selective in our area. We've got a Savills down the road in Knutsford, and there are Jackson Stops in Chester, I think. So we've got a couple of like premium national, international agents nearby. But generally speaking, we were the first independent to be selective at the mid to higher end. And there's still no one else doing it. The other ones who compete with us at that end still sell the lower end stuff and don't style it properly. So try and be the first in your area to do it, because it'll give you a massive leap, a massive head start if you can be the first to do it.
JK, anything to add?
I think the other thing as well, just talking about higher end agents and a little experience I had from one of the vals I was on this week. Sometimes people can't see your value. Sometimes people can't see full stop. They've got the sun in their eyes. You can probably see at the moment if you're watching this on video. But people can't see the value. There was a guy, I went to value his house, and he viewed a house with a premium agent on the coast. I won't say who or where. But he'd been given a paper brochure printout of this house. The house was £2 million. Like, it was like a luxury kind of like grand design style home. 2 million, near the coast. He rang the agent to book a viewing. The agent that was dealing with it was in a meeting until 2. He ran at 9 a.m. Agent didn't ring him back after 2, so he rang again. Oh no, sorry, still in other meetings. Didn't come back to him. And then when he finally managed to get hold of somebody after trying to view this £2 million house like 2 days in a row, they said, "Oh no, her diary's really busy. We'll get somebody from the other office to show you around," who was 3 hours away, drive. So this guy had to drive 3 hours to this property that he'd never seen before in his life to meet this person who also had driven. He drove 4 hours down from where he lives to the coast specifically to view this house, and got to the house. The guy didn't have a clue about the house or anything to do with it. I just thought it's like just poor service. So just going back to fees, you've got to be worth what you charge. And, you know, you've got to have, in order to be, and again, we'll talk about this in our mini series later on, to operate in the high end space and the premium market, you've got to be more than average, and you've got to be able to deliver service. It's not just about the marketing. We've talked about video, photos, all that, but it's also everything that fits together with it. Things like your viewings, how you feed back to them, how you deal with clients. There's so much we can go through. But yeah, it just reminded me when you said about like the certain national high end agents that are out there. I think people just assume, like, you know, I certainly did, and I put a post in our Facebook group last night that, you know, I always had that kind of imposter syndrome where, you know, why would somebody with £1 million house want to sell their house with a council house boy from Kempston? You know, what? Who am I to sell that? Well, actually, I'm the bloody best there is. And, you know, if you think you are, you are. If you think you're not, you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, well put, mate.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I agree completely. Yeah, it's a mindset thing. Definitely a mindset thing. You've got to get that straight in your head first, that it's possible. And by the way, you've got to be good enough.
Yeah.
To do this, you have got to be good. You know, you've got to be good enough.
And I think that's what we're saying. There's so many things that we've talked about with our agents over the last few weeks that it all feeds into. Well, there's so many things, isn't there? It all feeds into the one thing, which is producing a premium product, being confident to push that. But there's so many layers to it that you've just got to get right. But it all starts with this. How do you initially look? And once you start doing it, the confidence then comes to start charging you higher fees, and your self-worth is there.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say as we're sort of rounding off was that within the Complete Agent, we can help. So the Complete Agent is offering agents access to the higher end homes in their area, but probably as importantly, it's offering access to us. So we've got members signed up already now, haven't we? And we've already started passing out our content to them, and we've got a Zoom lined up with everyone in a couple of weeks' time. I know we're finalising a date on that where we're going to help these agents directly to achieve what we've achieved. So we'll continue to add value on this podcast every week to people, and we hope you take away lots of good takeaways. But ultimately, within the Complete Agent is really where we can start to get stuck in and help you achieve it.
Yeah,
and just bullet points. I was going to say, like, to round off what we've talked about today, Dave. I know you're like frantically with notes. Like, why don't we round off? So today's topic, what do you look like? If people have got to the end of the podcast and they haven't switched off, what are the bullet points that people need to look at?
What, as in, what I think they should be doing?
Well, yeah. I mean, what the bottom line is, we've discussed video, discussed marketing, how you look, but to kind of summarize where we're at, who are you and what do you want to sell? Yeah,
exactly. So if you're looking to get into the certainly the higher end bracket of your area, whether that's if you're in central London and that's 2 million up to 12 million, or you're up north like me and Ian, where it's probably more like 500,000 up to 1.5 million, you're going to have minimum standards. So for me, we do home staging on every appointment. So we have a home stylist on every single appointment. We have professional photography on every appointment, professional videography on every appointment, and that feeds into a presenter-led tour. It has to be presenter-led tour because, again, we'll discuss this in another pod, I'm sure, but it's not just about the house. It is massively about your brand, and we have all used that to increase our brand. You've got to have a different level of description. So I hear arguments from some people saying nobody reads the descriptions. Well, your vendor does, and
yes,
your vendor talks. Yeah, they do. For a start, they do. But your vendor does, and your vendor talks. And it's, to be dead honest, guys, it is all about them, and it's all about your brand. We also have a minimum design team in place that will design all our brochures, and we do a unique brochure for every single home, without fail. So if it is, Ian talked about brand stretch. So we're a little bit the same, even with the new brand. So I actually did a £375,000 3-bed semi a few months ago that is absolutely beautiful on the inside. It wouldn't normally have got onto that higher end brand, but it's absolutely beautiful. Photographed so well, looked amazing, 2% plus VAT, and it was the same. We won't make as much money on that, but it looks the same as all the big listings.
Yeah,
exactly.
It doesn't matter. Exactly, yeah.
It looks incredible. So
that will feed other listings.
Yeah, so those are the minimum requirements in our office. And if I choose to take on a 0.5% fee, which I never would, by the way, it should not compromise the quality that I produce. That's on me. So, but when you do it this way, it feeds into higher fees. So it enables you to differentiate yourself from the competition and charge those 2% fees.
Yeah, it does. One thing I was just going to say was that we have a marketing plan that we use. And at one point, a couple of years ago, I split it and did a secondary marketing plan for the lower end of what we sell, which didn't include a brochure. So we had exactly the same marketing plan, side by side, but one with a brochure, one out. And we very recently scrapped it because it was causing a nightmare in the office. The guys were saying, which plan am I sending out in the pre-listing pack? I don't know. And it was causing confusion on the valuation because it was like, is it a brochure? Is it not a brochure? So what we've done is Holly has now designed a template brochure. So for the lower end, I say the lower end, that's still like 300 to 500, but it's the lower end of what we sell. We have like a more of a template. It's still lovely. It looks bespoke, beautiful card, brochure, lovely brochure. But basically, we've changed it back, so we now do everything for every house, Dave, which ties in with what you say. So it was just getting complicated. It's much, much easier just to do everything for every house. It's easier to operate in the office, and it's much more impressive to the client.
Can I just say at the end here as well, one thing I think might be good, it might be useful if people are still listening and interaction. We had loads of people asking for the buyer letter in the group that maybe didn't actually see the podcast, and be interested to see what those results are in the next few weeks. But one thing I think would be quite good is if you want to reach, if you're not a member of the Complete Agent and you're not in the Facebook group yet, but you are connected with us and you are listening to this, if you want an honest opinion of your brand and where you're at, send us your Rightmove link, send us your website, send us your social media page, and we'll have a look and be honest. I'm not saying we're all the finished article, because we're always learning and we're always trying to improve.
Yeah.
But if you want an honest opinion, in private as to what we think you could do to improve, and if you want to level up and get into that mid to higher end space, then reach out to either one of us or join the Complete Agent Facebook group and get in touch.
Yeah. Last thing for me, it's not rocket science, this industry. You're dealing with, your product has got to be right, and then you're dealing with people, and it really is that simple. And I think that if you get this first part right, the way you look, it's so important, and your website is uniformed, it'll make such a big difference. And like I say, it changes. Having gone through this process, all three of us, it gives you that inner confidence. It changes you. It genuinely changes your self-confidence. And when you're going into valuations with that product, you're going in with a really top quality product, and especially your competition is not going to be doing it. You're already, I don't know, it feels like you're already halfway over the line, doesn't it? It just gives you that level of prestige, I think, to maybe have a better quality of conversation. And obviously, there's so many more layers to this. You can't just go in with a great product and expect to win it. But this is the first start.
Cool. So should we leave it there? We've gone an hour now. It's like a feature-length film rather than a podcast.
Yeah.
It's like one of Dave's voice notes gone on steroids.
Packed with value, though. Packed with value.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, great.
Right, we'll call it there then. So, yeah, thanks if you've got this far. Thanks for staying with us. Thanks for everyone that's rated the podcast. Don't forget to do that. Rate it, share it with someone that that might benefit from it, certainly in the industry or out. Yeah, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll catch up again next week.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks. See you next week.